Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. We are super excited to dive in, and we only have an hour together. And so we will have a panel, kind of a moderated panel followed by Q&A, where if you do have questions, you are very much welcome to come off of mute at that time and share them. And we do want to have a little bit of interaction. We have a really incredible set of panelists today. I will do an introduction initially and just be able to then let them share their own expertise in their own words. But the background of this is that we have, as the Women's Forest Congress, many different conversations related to how women can better propose solutions for the future of forests, how we can better support each other within the broader community. For those of you new to the Women's Forest Congress, this first started in 2022 actually in Minnesota. It was building off the longer legacy of the American Forest Congress. And as many of you know and experience on a day-to-day basis, the forest sector and tech sectors tend to be quite male dominated. And so today's session is really meant to create a particular space for us to talk about how the intersection of tech and forest conservation can have better representation, better solutions through the lens of women, and really think about how we can support each other as a community going forward. We have an amazing declaration on our website that also talks about how we can deepen the role of women as part of the future of forests, and I really encourage you to see that. My own background, I am a forest conservationist. I work at Conservation X Labs, which is a nonprofit that is really focused on channeling innovation and technology to addressing the sixth mass extinction. And I have the honor of being a steering committee member of the Women's Forest Congress. And I will introduce our panelists as well. Before I do that, I just wanted to say that we do have closed captioning available. We're recording this so that more folks can tune in later on. Do mute yourself. And if you would like to come if you would like to come on to video, I encourage you to do so, but also realize that Zoom can be draining. So do whatever feels good for you. And if you have any questions, feel free to contact Amy or Eliza in the chat box. So I am joined today by 4 amazing speakers, and I will just share a little bit of background on each of them. We have Danielle Rappaport, who is the science lead and founding member of the Nature Tech Collective. She will also soon be joining the NASA JEDI LiDAR satellite mission as an assistant research professor at the University of Maryland. And she brings a lot of extensive experience in the Amazon and a background in ecosystem remote sensing, bioacoustics, forest carbon, all sorts of amazing tech. Next, we have Jerry Rosenberg. She is a senior manager at American Forest who leads their work on geospatial data analysis and data management for their forest resilience and tree equity score programs. And so she has been working a lot in the US context, both across rural and urban forest landscapes. Marian Aidney is our director of Amazon and fire programs at Conservation X Labs. I'm very honored to have her as my colleague. And she's really been leading our efforts to advance a regenerative economy in the Amazon that is better for the future of forests in terms of eliminating deforestation and restoring degraded landscapes. She's also been leading our work on fire, which is using the power of open innovation to really bring in new solutions for wildfire management. And that's been in the Amazon as well as North America and Indonesia. And finally, we have Anupriya Tiwari. She is a senior Android developer with Taking Root. She's been working on developing the app that really enables smallholder farmers to tap into carbon payments for restoration in the forest sector. So as you can see, we have a really broad range of expertise here. And without further ado, I will welcome each speaker to just introduce yourself and how you see your work advancing the future of forests. Maybe we can start with Danielle.
Sure. Hello, morning, afternoon, good evening. I'm Danielle Rappaport, based in Washington, D.C. I've been serving as science lead at the Nature Tech Collective, an association of 150 plus nature tech startups that are accelerating our capacity to close the nature data gap, which is critical to crowding in finance to scale ecosystem regeneration and protection, fight greenwashing, prioritize actions, track outcomes, using tech solutions like environmental DNA, bioacoustics, satellite remote sensing, and other emerging solutions. I am actually starting a new role next month as an assistant research professor on the NASA JEDI LiDAR mission, a spaceborne LiDAR that is providing detailed three-dimensional measurements of ecosystem structure across most of the world's forests. And as far as how my work advances forest stewardship, I'd say the North Star of my career has really been on pretty singularly focused on helping humanity leverage the power of standing forests as critical infrastructure that can increase global flourishing and resilience. But my path has been kind of far from straight and narrow. First worked as a practitioner, piloting market-based payment for ecosystem service projects, then as a dirt forester, then as a remote sensing scientist, and most recently as an entrepreneur working to build collective active action strategies for catalyzing forest-friendly economies in the Amazon and elsewhere. So pleasure to be here with you all today.
Thank you so much, Danielle, and congratulations on your new role. Jerry, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, Jerry Rosenberg from American Forests. I am based in Seattle, and I'm on the GIS and data science team at American Forests, which means I do a lot of work on our Tree Equity Score program. We have a Tree Equity Score National Explorer where we essentially rank every single urban block group in the US with a score from 0 to 100 on how well that neighborhood is doing with regard to tree equity, which we use tree canopy versus a bunch of demographic features to map that. And then we also have, as a part of that program, much more detailed regional tree equity score analyzers, where we go at to much more detailed land cover data at the parcel level, and we have a scenario planner where you can essentially uh, plant trees hypothetically to see how that might change a bunch of different factors, including the tree equity score and the various environmental benefits around that. And I do some other work at American Forest as well on our resilient forest program, but the vast majority of what I do is for our tree equity score program. I came from the urban and transportation planning field before coming into here. So this is kind of how I've melded into the forestry field with kind of on the edge of urban forestry and data science as well.
Thank you so much, Jerry. Marion?
Thank you, Daphne. Thank you for the opportunity to be on this panel with these amazing women that you've brought together. I'm Marion Aidney. I'm the Director of Amazon and Fire Programs at Conservation X Labs, as Daphne mentioned. And I'll just start with the question you put in the chat, which is what excites you about technology? I think one of the things that excites me the most about technology is the way that we can use it to bring people together around a common problem. And that's one of the things that Conservation X Labs really specializes in, is thinking about how do we leverage science, technology, innovation, and the private sector to bring new minds and new voices and new perspectives to conservation and really change the way that we're looking at this field. And I came to CXL after spending quite a bit of my career working in donor agencies with the Gordon and Betty Moore Foundation, previous to Conservation X Labs in the Andes Amazon Initiative, and before that with USAID, where I was a AAAS fellow. in Washington for a couple of years, and then in Peru, also working on the Amazon program. I'm a tropical and fire ecologist by training and have really focused my career on tropical forest conservation. And I went into that because really because of a love for science and a love for nature, but quickly realized as a grad student that that the best way that I could have an impact on that I thought I could have an impact on forests was to go into conservation as opposed to staying in science and academia. That was my perspective for me. And I've spent a lot of my career actually bringing science into bear on conservation, and with Conservation Next Labs also really thinking about how do we bring the private sector to bear, and how do we transform our systems to actually support forests instead of seeing them as resources to be used up. So I'll stop there.
Thank you so much, Marian. Anu?
Thanks, Daphne. So, hey everyone, I'm Anupriya Tiwari. You can call me Anu, short. I come from a strictly technical background. I have my education in computer science, and I have worked in tech for over 10 years now. For the major part of my career, I've worked with a leading tech firm, developing products and features for them. Based on this description, I guess you might have a fair idea now that I'm pretty new to the forest conservation market, and I'm honored to share my thoughts here today along with these inspiring women on the panel. But with that, I think I bring a fresh perspective of an outsider turning towards this market with a hope to achieve some great results and do some good. And I'm currently working with Taking Root as a senior Android developer. I'm focused on working on their Android and web applications. Our purpose is to accelerate the restoration of the world's forest, and we also enable smallholder farmers to grow more trees and earn money from the carbon that they remove. And we provide them the whole tech stack of our engineering and data science products to help them do that. I've worked for some nonprofit organizations in India as well, to play my very, very small part in this long and crucial journey of forest conservation and reforestation. But now that I'm working firsthand in this field with these amazing, bunch of people, each one contributing towards, small but big, positive change. I think each work day is becoming more and more inspiring for me. And I'm thrilled to see that, how my work of developing these technical products is impacting by helping out these smallholder farmers in their day-to-day lives in Central America, and also restoring the world's forests. So happy to be here.
Thank you so much, Anu. I'm going to stop sharing the screen so we can actually see all your faces. So we have people who, they've been in the forest sector for a while. We also have a couple of you who have really changed sectors. And so I think maybe a first question is just what do you wish you knew when you were starting out your journey in forest conservation and or tech? How did you get started? What is your genesis story? And if you could be a mentor to somebody who's just starting out now, what would you say? And anybody can dive in here.
I can start. I think, I also had a bit of a circuitous route to working in conservation. I got a little bit distracted by the social sciences when I was an undergrad, and then became a teacher for a few years, and then did a bunch of volunteer work and trying to pull together enough of a science background to actually go to grad school in first conservation biology and then a PhD in ecology. And when I was going through the application processes and really trying to make a big career shift, I had some people who said, you just don't have the background for this, and we're not interested in working with you. And then I had others, including my mentor in my master's program, Josh Ginsberg, who said, you've been a teacher, you understand people, You have so much to bring to this field because conservation, in the end of the day, is really about people and about the way we interact with nature. And that really meant a lot to me. And as I've gone through my career, I've seen so many times how somebody coming in from a completely different perspective can make such a big difference. So what I would say is the skills and the knowledge that you have are what you need, and focus on those instead of thinking about the things that you don't have and that you don't know.
I definitely second that, Marion. Yeah. Anybody else?
I'm going to pick up on that thread that Marianne was riffing on because I couldn't agree more. I think, I suppose I wish I had known earlier on that it's very impactful to have to be both a specialist and at the same time have a beginner's mind. Um, Earlier in my career, I was really focused on kind of quelling this persistent imposter syndrome by gaining like deeper expertise and more specialization in forest ecology, and then later I got a PhD in remote sensing. But then I saw this need to just kind of relinquish my specialization in order to really be a systems thinker, and I needed to be able to zoom out um, and into wider and wider boundaries and be, in order to be a translator between the science world, the kind of tech commercialization world, and the market adoption world, I needed to be able to be okay being a beginner. And I think I would say to folks just starting their career that in order to really influence the forces that are shaping forest futures, we need more interdisciplinary chutzpah and courage than ever before, because solutions need to be rooted in the scientific, the social, the economic realities of place. So we need people who bring deep expertise in a particular field and are brave enough to be able to immerse themselves in new languages, new contexts, new disciplines, new ontologies, ways of being and seeing and sensing. And, we need more de-siloed human beings, really. And so I wish I had known earlier on that this feeling of being an imposter is actually a signal of doing the hard work of piercing through those silos in order to gain a kind of a wider boundaried understanding of reality.
I definitely agree with everything Marion and Danielle have just said. I think especially coming onto a tech team where there's already methodology and preferred languages and libraries and things like that from a code perspective, no one's ever gonna come into that knowing everything from the start. Like you learn a lot on the job. And so it's really helpful to come in knowing a bunch of languages, but you don't have to know everything. And I think it's just good to have a lot of, I think, history of uh, essentially learning new things and being open to learning new things, just as Danielle was saying. And I think just having proof that you are willing and able to take on um, new things that you've never tried before. Um, and also having a very, widespread portfolio of all kinds of different things, I think is definitely more beneficial than maybe being very, very specified. Um, it's good to be an expert in a few things, but it's good to be, beginner to intermediate in a whole lot of things. It just gives you a much better perspective, especially like Danielle said, when you're working with people from so many different backgrounds.
Yeah, I can just quickly add on to that. I totally agree with everything here. Another one thing that I would say is that you might have to, kind of change your expectations. So if you're, changing sectors, if you're coming from an adjacent sector, So there's a possibility that you might be, you know, managing a team of 20 engineers back where you were working, and then you're moving to forestry. There is a possibility that, you know, you would be working, you know, with a team of 2 people, and that would be all. So as everybody said, that this adds on to the point that you do not need to be an expert on everything, because there's a huge chance that you will learn a lot of new languages, technologies, new stacks when you are working here in this field, because most of the companies are, you know, trying to push towards, you know, getting big. But currently I see that a lot of you know, companies are especially the engineering departments are a bit smaller as compared to, you know, big tech firms, which makes sense. But that's the goal, that's the plan, that we want this to be big as well. So yeah, I think we just have to learn to be ready. We have to know that the knowledge that we have gained till now in wherever we were working will actually benefit us in this new industry. And second thing is that in terms of educational preparation, there are certain roles that might require some, you know, degrees or certifications. But in terms of tech, I think whatever certifications as women in tech we already have are more than sufficient to, you know, start or jump in into this industry. We do not need anything else. We just need to learn a little bit about the terminologies. That's my personal you know, learning step that I took when I started in the very first place. I struggled with terminologies. I knew what I have to do technically, but I didn't understand how that's impacting or what these terminologies mean. And the last thing is just you should make sure that the organization that you're joining has a good supportive work culture, because if you're skipping boats here, that's very, very important. So yeah, that's my 2 cents.
Thank you so much, everyone. I really, want to echo all of that. And also just to say that for anyone on the call who's not in the tech space yet, or not in forest conservation yet, thinking about making a move into an adjacent sector, we need all of the help that we can get. And so even if you find it intimidating, actually we don't have our shit together. So we need more people really fighting for the future of forests. And I really encourage you to reach out to any one of us on the panel today to think about how you can get more involved. The next question is really, you know, I think something that stood out to me when I first spoke with each of you was that most of you said you have never worked for a woman before. And that reflects, again, just the legacy of a more male-dominated workforce. We love our male allies, but there is a revolution that needs to happen. And so I'm curious, for now, up to this point in your career, how you've each navigated gender dynamics in your career, understanding that change does take time and that we do need to be resilient. What has really enabled you to stay optimistic, and how do you see yourself driving some kind of cultural change, either in your own organization or in your broader community? And yeah, anybody can really share perspectives here. I'd love to hear your thoughts.
I can go. Okay. So yeah, I think this is very true. Like there's a serious lack of women leaders, especially in the overall tech domain. But I think as Danielle mentioned, that she felt this huge, you know, imposter syndrome. It's the same with me, and I think that, you know, so many women like have this nagging feeling of being undeserving of the success, despite evidence to the contrary. I think it chips away our confidence, our sense of belonging, and it also makes you know, asking for help much more you know, tougher. And then it also makes us take a lot more on our plates than we should be in a healthy, mindful manner, just to prove ourselves. I think countless women in the tech industry are facing, you know, these battles every day right now, and it's amazing that we are trying to rewrite the narrative here. So I think what helped me personally dealing with these issues was to build a support network. So if you do not have many women in your own organization, then you can just look out for forums like this one, where there's so many inspiring women doing so much inspiring work that resonates with you. You can connect with them. You can connect with them on social media, on any sort of platforms. You can join networking groups, online communities. You can also seek mentorship. So in this particular matter, I would say that, both male and female mentors will provide you with, guidance and share their experiences and help you navigate with your career challenges. Other than that, the most important point is that other than any other technique here, the one thing that will stand by you forever is your own skill set. So you got to, keep learning continuously and keep developing your skill set. Stay updated on the latest trends, technologies, and skills that are relevant to your field. Continuous learning will enhance your technical expertise. It will also boost your confidence, and it will boost your credibility in your role. So that's going to be your best, supporter throughout. Other than that, there's another point, that's assertive communication. So I've been struggling with this a lot. I feel that when you're working in an environment which is very male dominated, for women, it's sometimes, hard to assertively voice your opinion without sounding aggressive or passive. So it's very important to, learn how to express your thoughts clearly, advocate for yourself, and set boundaries wherever necessary. It's not necessary that if you're asked to do something, you have to, just because you are trying to prove yourself. You need to set boundaries based on your own, physical, mental, and social health. So yeah, and altogether, in the end, I would say just stay positive. These kind of culture changes do take, some time and some perseverance. Celebrate each and every small victory. And yeah, that should be it.
I'll jump in to, I don't know if others on the call find also value the utility of frameworks, but I have two frameworks to offer in relation to both of the things that Anu said: direct communication and also practicing no, and kind of the disciplined pursuit of less. So in terms of navigating gender dynamics as a recovering people pleaser with a strong appetite for ambition, I would say that there are two books that have really helped me. One is Radical Candor by Kim Scott, which is an amazing framework for advancing a culture of candid communication, direct communication, and a culture of feedback in the workplace. Highly recommended. And it's like this great system for thinking about communication. And then for exercising boundaries and articulating no, is this great book called Essentialism by Greg McKeown. And it's really helped me practice that saying of no, and so that I'm not moving at a frenetic pace, trying to be everybody, everything to everybody. Another tactic around support networks I started tapping into actually after COVID is that I started engaging in a monthly virtual women's circle, actually two of them. I have two of them where I am in relation to the wisdom of older women and also younger women. And it's been transformational actually for me as a way of just tuning into the kind of embodied wisdom of female leadership, role modeling, to help me rewrite some of my own kind of inner patterns that have emerged from just operating in patriarchal systems, particularly like helping me slow down, invest in my own care, protect my boundaries, and kind of decompartmentalize my science self and my spiritual self that's, in pursuit of the greater mysteries of both, in pursuit of the greater mysteries of life. So I'd highly recommend creating or tapping into women's circles for that kind of relationality.
One thing I just wanted to add from something that Anu said about making sure you're doing a lot of professional development. One thing that I've found in my experience is that I can express my goals over and over again in the past to, all of my male bosses, but they are rarely the best advocates for me. And so if you don't feel like you're getting the professional development you need or desire to reach your goals, go seek it out elsewhere, like do an online certificate program or, you know, purchase somebody's, lesson plans to learn something new. Like, there's a lot of stuff online, and yeah, if you don't feel like you are receiving the support you need to reach those goals, it's easy to find online, and it's just about, then committing to making sure you learn those things. Feel like it's, yeah, everything's easy to access now, but gotta advocate for yourself when you're not getting what you feel like you deserve or need.
Thank you so much, Jerry. And yeah, I love all of these comments. I think also, that sometimes we can feel stuck in our own organization, but there is a hive mind out there. And so, as many have been saying, feel free to reach out to the woman here, to the broader community, and see yourself as a member of this field as opposed to just a cog in a particular organizational wheel. I've worked in the past for organizations that have been male dominated, and I don't think that if I was just kind of within the system of the organization, I would have been able to break out of the patterns. It was really through this dialectical approach of interacting with people across the industry that we were able to push on some of the limits. And Marianne, you've done a lot of work in the Amazon and I think had some perspectives to share on just the unique strengths and successes of women that you've worked with in the Amazon. Would you like to add anything there?
Sure. Yeah, I will say I've been really lucky to work for some incredible women leaders in the organizations that I've worked for, and that's been a real gift. And in just to add in this conversation, in the early part of my career when I was a teacher, I had a mentor who was a very large, imposing man, and he was an incredible teacher. But he would tell me how to manage my class, and it wasn't until later that I realized that I just couldn't do the things he was asking me to do because I was like a 22-year-old, young woman. And it didn't work. So at the time, I didn't realize how much I needed a female mentor to learn how to manage my class in a way that would work for me, because what he was doing just didn't. And then later, I was lucky at USAID and the Moore Foundation, particularly to work for some incredible, with and for some just really incredible women leaders. And I will say that in my work in the Amazon, I've seen women who are, really fearless in putting forward the things that they care about. And sometimes the things that they care about are not the same things as the things that the men would bring forward. And I actually was speaking to someone, and this is not an Amazonian story, but I was speaking to someone the other day who has gone very high up in a career in the fire world. And I asked her about this very thing, and she said, I was able to see different perspectives and push push different ways of doing things because I was always a bit of an outsider. And because of that, I was able to criticize the organization that I was part of in a way that if I had been completely accepted within, I would not necessarily have been able to do that. And I think that, to me, that actually just was really an observation on the need for diversity of all types in our organizations, that when you come with a different perspective, and sometimes it's very difficult if you are, in the minority and you don't have those role models, but the value of those perspectives is often what changes whole systems. Whether it's gender or some other type of diversity, those are the people that push the whole system to think in other ways. And I think that that is a really critical part of the role that we have as women, and also that we have with the other aspects of our identities that may be sometimes in the minority in an organization. And it also goes to the cross-sectoral, cross-disciplinary pieces, and that's actually one of the reasons why I came to Conservation X Labs, was because I wanted to bring different perspectives to conservation, especially for the Amazon, because I felt like we just weren't getting where we needed to be within the framework that we were working in. So I think it has many different applications. Thinking about
Thank
that.
you so much, Marian. Yeah. And just reflecting, as we're trying to meet these 2030 goals of eliminating deforestation, reversing forest loss, I think a lot of people can be skeptical around the approach of using technology. Often there's a description of people in tech looking for nails, and we're the hammers. And so I do want to just think about the systems change that needs to happen. How can tech really be responsive to the priorities of people who are working on restoration, on conservation, on sustainable forest management in some way? How do we make sure that our work can really help drive conservation outcomes at scale, at speed, and really navigate in a responsible, thoughtful way, making sure that we have safeguards in place so that we can really usher in that kind of transformational change to hit those targets. I'd love each of you to just share some thoughts on how we make sure that the work on technology is really grounded in this larger context of the forest sector and the other kind of actors, right, that actually influence or drive degradation or restoration on forest landscapes.
I can start on this. So a lot of the work I do is based in kind of building web tools for not just for urban foresters, but for anyone in the community who cares about their tree canopy in their city. Um, and one of the most important parts of our process when we develop what we call tree equity score analyzers, so our more regional, much more detailed applications, is it's a very stakeholder led process. Like before we even start, we develop a partnership with some group in the region and have them be the on the ground person to identify all the folks that should be involved in this process. And while we have a pretty similar tool for each of these regions, we make sure to always include specific data sets for that region, especially if these folks are already using certain tools or very dependent on, for example, like what ward each neighborhood is in order to get funding or anything like that. We make sure that's all included in whatever tool we develop so that everything can be in one place, mainly for ease of use so that we can make sure more people are comfortable using these tools and accessing them, but really just to make sure that they will be useful to people. And I mean, another part of that is making sure all of our data is always as updated as it can be to make sure it's the most relevant. But we also include very detailed methodology on our website so anyone can come and understand where that comes from and all the data sources so that they can trust everything. Besides, just doing user research of what features people want, I think just accessibility in order to understand what's going on in the background of all this information. And the last thing I would say is that, like, from an open source perspective, we provide all of our data for download on our website. Like, we're not trying to be secretive about any of it. We want more people to use it. We want people to be able to feel like this is trustworthy data, that our tools are useful, that you don't have to be an expert to utilize this information.
Thank you so much, Jerry. Anyone else?
Okay,
How to
I can handle it.
Yeah.
So yeah, so Actually, my stories is pretty related to Jerry's as well. So, Taking Root right now is exactly very much stakeholder driven and operational driven. So all the products, all the features that are developed, all the designs that are in discussions, all come from a very very properly managed channel. So everything starts from the on-ground staff and the operational staff that is working with the farmers. And then from there, we get the requirements. From there, we decide on what designs and what features are going to be developed. In the whole product in fact, all of the products of Taking Root are very heavily focused on farmer livelihoods. So all the work that I do here, my main focus is not to, this my clients, my users. That is the highest priority. So the payments, they should get their payments on time so that they can actually motivate other people in the community who might need some help financially, can join and actually work with the reforestation teams down there. Along with that, we're also working on making our tools, our products, our reports more reusable and more open-ended so that we can share them with other private organizations or non-profit organizations to actually utilize them and help with reforestation in other regions or domains. So I would say that I haven't worked before in a company or in a place or in a actually sector which is more user driven or more client driven than this one. So this is the users that we are impacting. The final users are the farmers and also the forests, the non-living users of our work. So all of that has to be the highest priority in this sector. If I think that applies for any place you work in the forestry sector, that would be the case everywhere. So yeah, that's true.
Can I add one more thing to that? And I would really agree with what you've both said about the need for user input and co-creation in tools. At Conservation X Labs, we're taking that a step further in our Amazon work and in our fire work. We're using open innovation challenges to develop solutions. The Fire Grand Challenge is looking at solutions to fire that bring together indigenous, traditional, and rural or place-based knowledge with science and technology and innovation from within those communities or without to change the way we think about fire systemically. And then in the Amazon bioeconomy work, we have an open competition right now. It's actually, the applications are closed, but it's still running, where we are looking at replacements for value chains that are harmful to the environment, and how can we build a better, more sustainable economy by replacing these with other things that come from the Amazon. In both of these competitions, we've actually instituted a matching process where we're bringing together communities, or in the case of the bioeconomy ones, Amazonian innovators with innovators and technologists from outside the Amazon or from other places, so that they form teams that are developing these technologies together. And part of the reason for that is to have what you both talked about, that user perspective built in from the beginning. But the other piece of it is actually a capacity building piece. And particularly for the Amazon, people talk a lot about how there isn't enough capacity yet in technology, science, and innovation to have the speed of innovation that we need. And so by creating these mechanisms where we're actually matching teams across international boundaries, across sectors and disciplines, we're trying to build that capacity as part of the outcome in addition to the solutions. And that's one of the things that I was referring to at the beginning when I said, I love the way that technology can bring people together. So that's one of the actual outcomes that we're looking for, is not just the solution, but the involvement of those communities so that they can then go on and do those types of things themselves later. And also giving young people those opportunities, I think, is a particularly important piece.
Thank you so much, Marianne. I'm realizing that we don't have a ton of time left, and I did want to just make sure that folks here had the chance to ask their own questions. So if anybody in the audience would like to actually come off mute and just share a question, you're very welcome to do so.
I have a question for the panelists. How are you increasing diversity in your organization, especially in areas where there just aren't a lot of diverse candidates available?
That's a
Not a
great question.
panelist, but I can answer the question because I work with Jerry at American Forests. You want to be to attract diverse candidates, you want to be hosting and going to outside the normal, not normal, outside your traditional posting. So work with groups like Green Latinos and Manners and other organizations that where diverse candidates are looking. And that's where you can find you can get outreach from there. There's also programs with USDAs and other government agencies to help with looking for diverse candidates. So you have to go where they are rather than expect folks to find you.
Yeah, I would second that. And actually for the Fireground Challenge, we actually have an open position for an outreach coordinator or outreach person, outreach lead, and really are looking for someone who has roots in some of the communities in Western North America, including Indigenous communities. And it hasn't been so easy to find. So we have really been doing exactly what you said, Rebecca, starting to reach out specifically to contacts that we know have links through those communities, including universities, cultural burn practitioners, and others, to get the word out. Also, I would say that our team in the Amazon, so this may not be relevant for people that are just working on US forests, but you could translate it a little bit. I mean, we have a team in Peru focused on the Amazon. And so one other way of thinking about that is hire people from within the communities that you're working in the communities and the spaces that you care about, that embody that diversity.
And I'll just say sometimes that ends up hitting heads with funding mandates to get programs started at a certain time horizon. When I was working at the Amazon Investor Coalition, and we were looking for staff to join from the region, it took a lot longer than the time that we had available as per the mandates from our grantors. And so I think, building in expectations from the get-go around timing for sourcing, really aligned, representative staff is very important. So you're not in this position where you're operating under some kind of imposed haste that prevents you from actually sourcing a representative talent pool, if you will.
Any other questions?
I had put a question in the chat about, did I hear that some of the panelists are working on carbon credits or tracking? And if so, in what way? And can somebody speak to the training and learning opportunities around that?
Yeah, I can speak to that. I've my background is in developing kind of the data infrastructure for monitoring forest carbon stocks and losses associated with management and fire and logging. So not the market mechanisms per se, but within the Nature Tech Collective, what we've been doing is creating an association and kind of a community infrastructure to support startups and companies who are developing tools for supporting project managers to do the MRV work with carbon credits. And so that's a great resource. I think the Nature Tech Collective, there's about 150 startups where our focus is on kind of nature writ large, beyond just focusing on carbon as a single value. But I think it would be it'd be worthwhile, depending on your interest, to get engaged, and can reach out. And I'm happy to field any questions about the Nature Tech Collective and opportunities for engagement with this great team of or collaborative of MRV developers.
Thank you so much, Danielle. Anu, do you want to take any or share any thoughts related to carbon as well?
Yeah, so I do work with carbon credits and tracking here, but I'm not focused on the carbon aspect so much of the products. I am more focused on the tech aspect. But yeah, when I joined this work, carbon credits were something that I had no idea about. So if you are coming from that background where you do not know anything about it, I would say I started with reading some actually not reading, actually tracking some websites. So I'm in Canada, so I followed Environment and Climate Change Canada, Canadian Environment Assessment Agency, Natural Resources Canada, these kind of websites, and see what reports they are publishing on the and their natural resource policies and programs. So pretty much every region, province and country, have their own programs that they keep rotating for new people to join and learn. That could be a good place to start, as well as from what Danielle suggested here. So coming from a tech background, that's the one thing that helped me understand a bit more about carbon. And if you're joining an organization, you will have a whole set of glossary and terminology shared with you. And each organization working with carbon is actually following a particular standard or guide that enables them to pass or not pass as a as a company or as a project that's actually sequestering carbon. So reading more about that project or that standard would help you a lot to understand these technical terms. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Anu. So I think we will turn it back to Amy, actually, just to share a little bit more on what the Women's Forest Congress is doing on all of the things that are coming through in terms of making sure that we're recruiting and retaining women in this sector and promoting them into leadership positions. Amy, over to you.
Great, thanks, Daphne, and thanks to everyone, every one of our panelists for sharing your insight and with us today, and just for everyone being here today with us and learning. And I did want to share a few things. It wouldn't be a Women's Forest Congress event if we didn't share a call to action at the end. So definitely connect with us. Share with your community about the Women's Forest Congress. We are active on social media, so you'll find our social media channels listed there. We're on Facebook and LinkedIn, probably the most active areas. We would love for you all to check out the declaration from the Congress from 2022. There's a QR code here on the screen for you to scan and capture that and review and help move that forward in your own workplace and your own organizations. And feel free to reach out to us, join our email list. Our email address is here, info@womensforestcongress.org. If you have questions or just anything about the Women's Forest Congress, shoot us an email there and we'll definitely get back to you. And then another place where we can continue this conversation that is our LinkedIn networking group. So there's a QR code down there on the left-hand side of your screen that will take you to that LinkedIn networking group. And we'd love to continue this conversation. That's an area where we're sharing job posts, just sharing resources and just information with one another and really to network within the community. So yeah, we're really just grateful for all y'all being here. And Daphne, I'll throw it back to you to close this out.
Thank you so much, Amy. Yeah, I wish we had a whole other hour to really go deeper on all of this, but I'm really grateful to the panelists today. You each bring such wisdom, and just seeing all of these people who've joined us, all these incredible women. We have a strong community. I know like it's not always visible, but we are here. And so I'm really hoping that this is a seed for more conversations. And if you do want to make a commitment to the resolutions that Amy just talked about, we do have that declaration on our website. We would love to find ways to work collectively on driving that that revolution, that cultural change. And we talked a lot about, I think, just our role as women today. Each of us has a lot more to share on the actual kind of substance and the sector specific challenges and solutions. And I would really encourage you all to get in touch. I see the panelists have also shared their emails in the chat. But I do want to respect that this is our lunch hour. And so a lot of us have long work days to get back to. Thank you so much again, everyone, for joining, and all of the speakers for their time. I know it's not an easy sector to work on, and sometimes it really feels like an uphill battle, but your work is really encouraging and inspiring.